Hello, it's been a while. Okay, it's been a long while, I think. I don't really remember the last time I did an update video. It's been a little too long. It's currently March 16th, 2023. It's 9 a.m. I woke up at like 5 in the morning and I was like, oh, I should go back to bed, and then just didn't. But I figured I haven't done an update video in a while, so I should probably do one. Kind of explain where my head's at and what my plans are. Originally this year, I kind of was like, alright, I'm going to try to make a file like every week. Because I figured, having a goal's good. And I figured it was pretty easy. You could just, make a file a week. That's not hard. Obviously that has not happened. That fell off in like the middle of February after like 6 or 7 weeks. And there's a lot of reasons for that, which I'm going to get into. But mainly it's just because, like, I don't know, I wouldn't say I'm miserable, but I definitely don't enjoy this as much as I used to. I think it's a number of reasons for that. Mainly because I feel like I've literally done everything. Like, lots of people, thankfully, send me ideas, and I've always tried to do ideas that people send me. The problem is that so many times they fall into one of two categories. A, they're so specific to the person that I can't make a file on it. There have been a number of people who have emailed me, like, file requests, and they're like, hey, here's an idea, can you make me into, like, this character? And I'm like, I can't produce a file for that, because the amount of people who want this specific thing can probably be counted on one hand. The other one is they suggest something to me that I've already done. Because at this point, in 2023, I've made like somewhere between 400 and 600 files. Somewhere in there. It's been a lot. Across various channels at different times. And so I'm like, I don't know what else there is to do. Part of it is just because YouTube has become much more hostile to what I do lately. The problem with YouTube these days is not necessarily YouTube as much as it is like culture, like in general, like popular culture, I guess. Like, content today is kind of stratified between really short content that's like 30 seconds, like the TikTok generation, and it's stratified on the other end to like 40-minute high production value videos that have like 6 or 7 ad breaks in them. So you either do like short or long videos. If you're doing anything in between, YouTube doesn't really like you. And likes me even less because I don't put ad breaks in the middle of my videos for obvious reasons. Because it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work if you were like 10 minutes into one of my videos and then suddenly there was an ad for like Bounty. It would kind of take you out of it. It wouldn't work. And so YouTube doesn't like prioritizing my stuff because of that. And it's also kind of like, again, I can't make my videos super short, and I can't really make them super long. When I started out, I made my videos really long, and most people didn't like that. They're like, make them shorter. And so over time, they became shorter. But now I'm at a point where I can't really make a lot of them really short. I tried doing TikTok. I created a TikTok account, started uploading like videos that I tried to make super short. Because TikTok allowed for videos that were 10 minutes long, and I got views on them, but the problem is that most people on TikTok weren't actually watching them, which is something I found out. People were like leaving likes and viewing them and not actually watching the videos. So it was like, why am I doing this? Why am I working so hard to do this? And so yeah, I'm like kind of in a place right now where I'm like miserable because every time I sit down to like try to make content, I'm like, I've done this before. It's already done. I'm repeating myself. And YouTube's not really like pushing me to people's feeds. So it's not like I'm rediscovering anything. And the other problem is it's like it doesn't matter what I produce. It all gets the same amount of views. like the problem is it's like and I kind of did this as an experiment where I put out a bunch of like binaural beats because people were like, hey, you could do this, or hey, you could do like subliminals. And I really don't like subliminals because I think they don't work. But people asked for them, and I was like, hey, I'll just put them out, see what happens. And it's like, okay, these get the same amount of views as the videos that are scripted and recorded, despite taking like 100th of the time. And most of my videos peter out into like 1,000, 2,000 views. So it's like, okay, what am I doing here? We hit the ceiling. And I feel like I kind of have, but I don't really have like anything to pivot to. So it's like, okay, what am I doing? It's not like I can use this channel for anything else because it's specifically designed around one thing. So it's not like I can just like, oh, now I do gaming content. Not that I would do that, but it's like, what do you do when you're in this situation? Like, how do you like move forward? Do you move forward? Like, on one hand, I'm like, like there's no more like gas in the tank, kinda. And on the other hand, I'm like, well, I kind of have to because, like, otherwise I'll starve to death. Like, I'm not saying this is like my main job, but it's turned into a situation where I'm like I do several different kinds of like content creation, and they all kind of make around the same, and so it kind of like evens out. But it's kind of like, all right, I'm 32, I'm broke, I don't really have any like energy for this, or like any inspiration or passion for this anymore, and I don't really know what to do about that. Like, part of the reason I started doing this a number of years ago full time was I was making more than working minimum wage. Like, the thing was like when I worked at, I don't want to say the name of the place. When I worked at it wasn't a gas station. I don't know what you call it. It was like a convenience store kind of thing. Like they had a pharmacy. It was kind of like a CVS or a Walgreens sort of store. It's like I worked there and they were like giving me like 20 hours a week and a minimum wage back then. And minimum wage where I worked back then was like, I want to say it was like $10 at the time. So I was making like nothing. And so I switched over to doing this, and I was making more, and I was like enjoying it, because I hadn't done everything yet, and I was still learning. I was still kind of like, I had like, things to do, and I was able to do it, kind of thing. Like, I don't really know how to put this any better. It was more like, oh, I had new frontiers to kind of look at. And that was like 2013. That was like a decade ago, I think. It might have been 2014 or 2015. I don't remember exactly. But it was a while ago. It was probably almost a decade ago. It was at least 8 years ago at this point. And so I'm kind of like, all right, what do I do now? What do I do? Where do I go? Kind of thing. Because obviously, when you're like 24, you have a different set of priorities than when you're 32. And I don't really know. Like, I want to still make content occasionally. I still want to, like, push myself. And I'm, like, super reliant on some level on people who donate to me via Patreon, because YouTube does not particularly like when you don't have mid-rolls. Like, that's the best way to put it. Like, YouTube, the way ads work on YouTube now is ads individually pay less, and they incentivize you to have more ads. And if you have more ads, they promote you more. Like, that's kind of how YouTube goes. And so it's like, okay, well, you know, like on one hand, I'm like, I want to put more stuff out that like, the people who support me on Patreon, like, can feel good about doing. And on the other hand, I'm like, I have no idea what to put out. I have like nothing in the tank. I have like no inspiration and no motivation and like no passion left. And it's really sad and like makes me miserable. Because it's like, all right, I'm like cheating other people, but I can't like not do it because otherwise I'll starve to death. So it's like, what do you do? And it's made harder by the fact that like I'm autistic and I've never really been able to hold down a job. So it's like, what do you do? Like, how do you get a job when you're like, neurodivergent? And I guess it's the way I put it. And it's like, no one gives a shit, and on some level they shouldn't, but on some level it's like, all right, well, what do you do? Where do you go? How do you make a living when you can't be normal? You kind of fall back into like what I'm doing now, where it's like you're basically looking for your white whale, I guess is the way to put it. And depressing, when you think about it, where it's like, man, I hope I haven't peaked at like 28. Like, you don't want to like end up in that circle where you end up in a death of despair kind of situation. But it's like, yeah, I can see that. I can see that happening. That's not good. So it's just kind of like, what do you do? It's like I have a second channel, which I've been like uploading like podcast things on whenever like I get an idea for something to talk about, but it's not like a consistent thing. And again, YouTube is not particularly how do I put this, like it's not particularly incentivized for lots of content. And so it's like, okay, well, what do you do about it? Like, what do you do? How do you, like, move forward when you're sort of stuck? And that's kind of where I'm at. That's just kind of like, where I'm at mentally, where it's like, the thing that I've done for so long, I've basically done it all, and there's nowhere for me to go. And if I do it again, I'm just repeating myself to like, 1,000 views, and it's like, is that really worth it? Are you really doing anything with your life? Kind of thing, it's I don't know. It's one of those things where like I don't really know how to put it into words, but it's just sort of frustrating. It's just like YouTube sent me a thing where they're like, hey, you got 8 million views, and it's like, well, that's cool. I've been doing this for 8 years. And most of those views are on old content because YouTube only prioritizes old content of mine. So when I make new content, no one sees it because YouTube only promotes the stuff that already has views in the search engine. So it's like, okay, so all my old stuff that I don't particularly like gets views and none of my new stuff does. So it's like, okay, well, there's no incentive to like keep making content. And I don't know, there's no energy. There's no energy to it. And the problem is that pivoting towards other things, like in this sort of genre, is sort of like an empty, like there's nothing there. Like it's an empty, like, bucket, I guess. Like there's nowhere to pivot. Like, okay, I could lean harder into fetish content. But if I did that, it's something I'm not really familiar with and not really comfortable with because I'm asexual and I don't understand it. So I'm kind of already sort of like trying to emulate something that doesn't come naturally. The other problem is like, okay, you're absolutely going to get demonetized by YouTube if I go that way. And so it's like, okay, I could go into like trying to sell audio files as porn, but that's also kind of a dead end because all the places that mostly sell stuff don't allow you to sell hypnosis content. Because lots of, how should we say, awful people, abusers, have sort of polluted the well. And so places like Clips for Sale and places like Pornhub allow you to put hypnosis-based content on their sites. So you're already sort of swinging, you're already sort of, on the back foot. You can't sell on the two biggest platforms if you want to make this content. So that's not really a good way forward. You can sort of, pivot to like, okay, I'm going to hypnotize like models. But the problem is that to do that, you need to, do a lot of paperwork because you need to have everybody sign modeling contracts and you got to send out 1099s and you have to pay for all that. And it's like, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to pay them for their time. And then I'm probably going to get like 2,000 views. And that's not nearly enough to cover like doing it. So there's no, again, I can't sell that on any of the like main sites. So you're just sort of like, you're just sort of screwed, no matter which way you go. And, part of this is like, on top of this, like, I'm an LLC, okay? So I pay business taxes rather than individual taxes. And like, every year I got to pay the state of the state of Maryland, I got to pay them like $400 to tell them that, I don't own property. Like every year it's like, all right, you got to tell them, hey, your business doesn't own property. Thanks for that. Now give us $400. It's like I just had to pay another $75 to change the address because I moved like a year and a half ago. And I didn't realize that I didn't switch the address. But yeah, you got to pay $75 for that. Something which for a credit card company takes 30 seconds and you can do for free. But if you're working in the state of Maryland, you got to pay them $75 for that. And that's not even counting like, tax burden and everything else because self-employment tax is like 30%. And, it's like, all right, do I just like close the whole thing down? I've been seriously tempted, and that's kind of a knee-jerk reaction sort of thing where I've been like so tempted in my like depression / despair to be like, I'm just going to close the channel, delete everything and disappear and let everybody wonder what happened to me. Like I've seriously considered that. I don't because I kind of need the income. And a couple $100 they send me every month pays for food. So it's kind of like, that's what you do. You do what you got to do. I don't know. It's one of those things where I like. It's a crux between like feeling spent and the autistic wall that I feel. And I don't think I've really like opened up about this to other people, but like a lot of people really, really hate things like autism speaks because they're like, you shouldn't treat autism like it's a disease. And I'm like, yeah, you absolutely should. Like, personally speaking, somebody with it, somebody who struggles with it every day, it's the wall. Like, that's how I describe it. It's a wall. You wake up every day and you wonder, are you going to be able to do anything today? Is your brain going to let you? Because just doing something as simple as like eating, you have to fight the wall. And every day, the wall gets rebuilt. And every task you do, you have to fight. And it's exhausting. Because you can't just do things. You can't just like decide today you're going to go eat. No, it's like you have to sit down and wait 20 minutes while you fight yourself to try to ask, hey, you should do this. You have to have an internal debate. And you have to do it every time, over and over again. And it's even worse when you're trying to like make anything of yourself or make content. You know, it's a wall. And I would not wish this on anyone. I would not wish autism on anyone. Because it's miserable. It's a miserable existence for anyone. It is a torturous existence. It's not as bad as some things. Okay? You know, people talk about the vaccine debate kind of thing and all that bullshit. And it's like, no, I would much rather have autism than polio. But if you told me I could push a button to get rid of it immediately with no side effects, I would not hesitate. I would not wait a second. And I know people who say that my way of thinking about this is awful and that it's not true, but it absolutely is. You know, that's my lived experience. And in my experience, the only difference between people who, you know, think that autism is just a thing you live with and think of it as a debilitating disease is whether or not you've had people around you who can cover your ass. Like, everybody I know who's like, oh, it's not that bad, is like, oh yeah, I have family that I can lean on. I have friends that I can lean on. It's like, I got nobody. You know what I mean? I grew up with nothing like that. And, you know, for me, it's just like trying to force yourself to kind of do things. And for a long time now, at least 2 to 3 years now, I've been trying to force myself to do this. Like, to try to, like, you know, keep at it. Because it's the only thing I got. It's the only thing I know how to do. It's the only thing I know what to do. Like, I don't have anything else to, like, lean back on. You know, I don't have any other skills. Can't hold down a job, really. And so it's like, you know, what do you do? Where do you go? Like, you end up homeless, basically, if you don't make yourself do it. But it's kind of like, you know, 2 to 3 years now of, like, kind of forcing myself to make content. To sort of, like, force myself to do something I don't enjoy and, like, I have no passion for because it pays the bills, kinda. And it's like, you know, it's tiring. It's exhausting. It's like, you know, you forget what it's like to enjoy things because you can't enjoy anything when you're this worried about, like, just making ends meet. And that's kind of where I'm at. Like, that's kind of like, you know, this is super depressing. Like, it's super depressing to talk about. And nobody wants to hear it. Because everybody's got problems. But it's like, you know, it's not fair to everyone who listens to me to be, like, in the dark, I guess. You know, like, you guys should know everything that's, like, in my head. Like, well, why is your content sporadic? Why is your content, like, you know, different? Or why are you, like, you know, just trying to put things out? Because, like, you know, some people are like, oh, it's writer's block, but it's not. That's the thing. Like, if part of it is, it's like, if I stopped making and they said, oh, take a few months off, it's like I would never come back. Like, that's the thing. Like, I know I wouldn't. Like, I know myself too well for that. And, like, if I was just kind of like, oh, you know, stop making content for a few months and recharge your batteries, it's like you'd never hear from me again. Like, if I don't force myself to do it, you know, I'm never going to continue. And then I'm going to be homeless. And it's like, you know, it's miserable. That's no way to live. But, you know, that's why I need to, like, you know, keep people informed. So it's like, you know, and understand where my head's at and what I'm thinking. Like, trying to express, you know, like, okay, where are you, you know, what are you doing? What are you planning on doing? Like, I have no plans. Like, I've tried to make plans in the recent past and they don't work out because ultimately, in order to, like, execute plans, you both have to have the energy for it, you have to have the drive for it, and you have to fight the autism. And when the autism says no, it's very easy to get like off track and behind, and you're just sort of like playing catch up. And that's kind of how it is. You either have to like ignore the plan that you made because the plans were pointless, or you have to like just kind of like assume, okay, well now I'm super behind. Yeah, it's like it's probably good that I don't drink. Let's put it that way. It's probably good that I don't have the money to drink, or that I've never particularly enjoyed it, because I would be an alcoholic. Runs in my family. But yeah, that's just kind of like, now I'm kind of rambling, I'm kind of repeating myself. That's just kind of where I'm at. And it's like, why aren't you making as much content? Why is the content not as long? Like, just because I got no ideas, man. I got no ideas on where to go, and I got no energy for it, and I got no passion for it. And I probably shouldn't even like put this video out, but it's kind of like, it's more important to me that people kind of understand why everything's kind of erratic. Because, you know, I'm just sort of like, I don't know. I'm making content in spite of myself. Let's put it that way. Like, and again, I'll link my second channel if anyone cares about that, in the description. Because it's not hypnosis content. It's just whatever content comes to my mind that like I feel like recording. It's like, oh, I have an hour. I'll sit down and record something. Like, that's just kind of how that content is. So yeah, I don't know. That's just where I'm at. That's the update. Sorry it's so depressing. But it's miserable. Being me. Just kind of miserable being me. And there's nothing really I can do about it. So I guess I'll just keep continuing on. So I guess that's kind of like an update that's not an update when you think about it, because I don't think anything's going to change. But now you know. Now I have depressed you by informing you of like my mental state and where I'm at right now. Because there's just, there's nothing really going on, and I don't know what to do, and I kind of hate it. Anyway, see y'all later.